Hello, and welcome back to Informed Mommies. Today I'll be talking about my experience as a first-time mom during a pandemic. Stay tuned. Being a new mom is not easy, whether it's your first, your third, or your 19th. You are healing from a physically brutal event, whether it was a natural birth or a C-section. You are bleeding like crazy, you're sore, and you may have stitches in places you don't even want to think about. You are hurting all over, you're leaking, you have intense cramps, and you have hormones raging across your whole body. And to top it all off, you have this tiny human who is relying on you for everything. For food, for comfort, for warmth. This tiny little thing who can only communicate their discomfort or their needs to you in one way. Their piercing little cries. Newborns eat about every 2 hours, and they go to the bathroom just as much. And a lot of them tend to confuse night and day. They don't understand that nighttime is a quiet time for sleeping, because a lot of them spent close to 9 months being rocked to sleep by your motions throughout the day. Every baby is so different. Some babies eat and sleep like champs. Some babies get reflux and sleep poorly. Some babies love to be swaddled and comforted. Some babies like to have their hands free to self-soothe. Some babies are super chill and don't mind being passed around or put down. And some babies really only want to be held by mom. Some babies get colic and gas. They scream and cry for hours on end, and you can't for the life of you think of why. You will bounce, sway, pace, shush, sing, bicycle their legs, change their diaper, offer more food, burp, pat, and rub their little backs. You will think they are too warm and undress them, then think they're too cold and bundle them back up. Swaddle them, unswaddle them, take them for a walk, take them for a drive. Being a parent is hard. But usually you have friends and family to come and help. They will give you a few minutes as a break. They will hold that baby for 10 minutes while you catch a shower for the first time in a week, or watch the baby for an hour so you can get a nap. They'll make you food so you eat a nice hot meal that isn't takeout, or they'll help you wash dishes or do laundry. The friends and family who come and do things like that, rather than be a burden, are invaluable. And if you have someone who is offering help, take it, because this is such a difficult time, and you don't have to do this on your own. Unless you're like me and countless other people who gave birth in 2020 or are due in 2021. My baby was born in January, so the first 2 months we were able to have people come and visit. However, we live about 3 hours away from all of our friends and family, with the exception of my husband's brother and his wife, who are closer to 17 hours. We did not have help nearly at all. My family came to visit for the day after we got home from the hospital. After that, it was only on weekends, and it wasn't every weekend. We had a few friends come by in February, and I had one friend who helped me fold laundry and wash some bottles, and I was so grateful to her for doing so. And then March came. Everything stopped. My husband, who had only been back in the office for a few weeks after paternity leave, started working from home long before everyone in his company did. His boss knew we had a newborn and was fine with him working from home. At first, it was a relief. It was a nice thing for him to be able to be so close to us so that he could spend more time with us, even if he was working. Then everything shut down. The numbers rose. Toilet paper was scarce, and there were long lines for everything. We were scared. Beyond scared. We quickly realized that going to the grocery store or to the club stores were terrifying. And we started using Instacart and Peapod. We had been using DoorDash even before this because getting food with a newborn was just too difficult. But we started using DoorDash even more after this. We had no visits from anyone. It was just me and the baby, with my husband working upstairs on our bed. It was incredibly tough, and I have to say I'm incredibly grateful for my husband, since even though he was working, he would come downstairs, he would cook me food, he would give me a break if he heard her giving me a hard time, or if he heard that I was starting to lose my patience. He always came when we needed him. He would take the day off or take a half day on days that we had to bring her to the doctor, and he would drive us there, even though he couldn't come in. And I know that was hard for him to not be able to come into the doctor's office with us. When I was pregnant, and even before, I dreamt of what my maternity leave and my baby's first year would be like, full of love and laughs, showing her off to friends and family, traveling to see people, going on vacation, celebrating holidays, lots of days home walking in the park, or going to the playground, and doing things like library read-alouds for babies, mommy and me classes, stroller walks for moms, and meeting new people who were in a similar stage of life as we were. These dreams were dashed. We celebrated her first Easter at home, not doing anything special. I cried. I knew she wouldn't remember it. She was only 3 months old at the time. But when she was first born, we had been planning on bringing her back to our home for the first time then, to celebrate with our families. It would have been her first time traveling. The longer this went on, the more depressed I began to feel. My husband and I didn't even feel comfortable enough for me to walk on the walking trail that was near our apartment. We stayed inside for months. We ordered everything online. The only time I left the house was for doctor visits for me or the baby, or to go to the pharmacy to get medicine, which eventually stopped since I was getting home deliveries. I canceled my eye doctor visit and my dentist appointment. I was so isolated, so desperate to get out. In late spring, I started taking the baby outside to sit in the shade on a blanket, just for a change of scenery and some fresh air. I think she was confused at first because we had barely ever been outside before. I ordered a nice outdoor blanket from Amazon because we had been using a beach towel, and we would pack up the diaper bag full of books and toys and snacks and be outside as long as we could possibly be, going around her napping and feeding schedules, of course. At the end of May, my brother-in-law and his wife had their first child. We were supposed to go down and visit them, but obviously we could not. There was no way we were going to bring a 5-month-old baby on a plane during a pandemic. I was supposed to go back to work on June 1st, but with the schools having officially closed for the rest of the school year and being virtual, we got an email saying that we had all been furloughed. I'm a substitute teacher, so if there's no school, there's no need for substitute teachers. I was a little sad to miss getting to see my 5th graders again before they left to go to middle school, but I was also really glad to stay home with my daughter. The daycare we had set up for her was very understanding and allowed us to push back her start date to September 1st. My baby wasn't ready to be on her own at daycare, I kept telling myself. She hated masks. She didn't even like when we wore them. And she definitely didn't want to see other people wearing them either. Summer came, and it started to get too hot to sit outside, so we were trapped inside for long periods of time. Again. I would take her out sometimes in the early morning or very late afternoon when it wasn't so hot. We celebrated her first 4th of July alone. I told myself it was okay because she'd be asleep by the time fireworks came anyway, and she wouldn't really understand what was going on. At the end of July, things were starting to look better. We started allowing just our parents to come see us. The baby freaked out. She wouldn't let anyone hold her except mommy and daddy. Even though we had kept in touch with people through FaceTime, these people were basically strangers to her. Our parents were so sad that they couldn't even be near her without her crying. They had already missed so much, so many milestones. I had started to think about going back to work in September. I stayed up late to watch Zoom board meetings, thinking how ridiculous it was that they had to meet virtually to discuss whether hundreds and thousands of kids could go back to school in person. My elementary school that I work in has over 1,000 students in it, let alone all of the teachers, staff, support staff, administration, janitorial staff, and specialists. I began agonizing over the risks, wondering if the benefit, my measly substitute teacher salary, outweighed the risks of bringing home a deadly disease to my infant, wondering if she'd be okay at daycare with teachers she'd never met wearing masks all day. She didn't know any of these people, and she couldn't even be held by her grandmother. Plus, I was concerned about the other babies in the infant room. I know my daughter at this stage was still putting everything in her mouth. And I was worried that if other babies are doing the same, then how could they possibly contain the spread of germs? After weeks of discussing with my husband, agonizing over whether we could afford me not going back to work, many hours of internal debates, and thousands of tears shed, I made the hard decision to not go back to work. I emailed my job and told them that maybe I would come back in December after seeing how the first semester went. I had to contact daycare again and push back her start date to December 1st. I could tell they were getting annoyed with me, but what could I do? I couldn't have been the only person doing this, could I? Then August came. Baby girl turned 7 months old, and tragedy fell on my family. My grandmother, my only remaining grandparent, passed away. She never even got the chance to meet my daughter. We FaceTimed with her while she was in the nursing home, just for a few minutes. And I have to tell myself that that was better than nothing. But I was devastated. Just so overwhelmed with the sadness of all of it. We weren't even sure if we were going to be able to go to her funeral, with the pandemic still raging across the country and with the baby, but I couldn't not be there. So we packed up and stayed overnight at a hotel the night before, the baby's first night away from home, the first night that she used the pack and play. She hated it, but she did eventually fall asleep. In the morning, we woke up and got ready and went to the wake, where she got to meet my aunts and uncles and cousins for the first time. Surprisingly and thankfully, she was very good at the funeral home. She was content to be held by us, even though we all had our masks on, and she did smile at people every now and again. Right towards the end, she started to fall asleep. My husband was asked to be a pallbearer, so I wrapped her in a blanket, brought her up to say my final goodbyes to Nana before heading to the car to get ready for Mass. My grandmother was part of a group of people who made rosaries for the church, so there was a whole bunch of people standing outside 6 feet apart, lining the entrance to the church when we got there. And I definitely saw their eyes on us, and I heard a few murmurs and whispers about the baby. And thankfully, she was really good in the church too. In fact, I had a few people come up to me afterwards and tell me that they barely even knew she was there because she just was so quiet. After that was another drive to the cemetery where, of course, it started to pour. It got really cold and windy, and here is the first place that she started getting fussy. I tried my best to keep her warm because it wasn't a very long time at the cemetery, and then it was back in the car again. My extended family was going to be meeting at my aunt's house 45 minutes away for lunch. Normally there would be a luncheon at a restaurant open to anyone at the funeral, but obviously this was not the case. We had to stop in a parking lot near the cemetery so that I could take her out of her car seat and feed her and change her, and kneel in the parking lot in my dress, in the rain, to change her. Unfortunately, she started to freak out at that point because there was just too many ins and outs of the car, so I sat in the back seat with her on the way to my aunt's house. At my aunt's house, she got to meet her cousin for the very first time ever, my sister's son. September came. I found a Pandemic Pals group on Facebook. One of the moms in my county moms group started it for people with babies 0 to 1. We would meet up every so often in a park, sit on our own blankets, socially distanced, and just talk. Our babies would sit on our blankets and play with their own toys, and we would get the support we needed from other moms who were in a similar stage of life as we were. I loved meeting up with them. It was so nice to just get out of the house, talk to other moms, even if what I really wanted was to see my own friends. We had started to ease up a bit. We had gone home at the end of August for my sister-in-law's bridal shower, and were planning on going back again early in October for her wedding. Things were still tough, but we were on a schedule now, on a routine. Things didn't seem so bad. They seemed like they were getting better. In October, we went back home for my sister-in-law's wedding, and my husband's brother, wife, and their son flew up as well. It was the first time that we were meeting our nephew, and baby girl meeting her cousin as well. We were still really concerned, though, because they were coming from a state that was still pretty bad. We were scared, but what could we do? I tried my best to put aside my fears and enjoy the wedding, even if it wasn't what it was originally supposed to be. My parents were supposed to take the baby since children weren't really a part of it, and we wanted to be able to enjoy it and get a night off. She came with us instead. I held her as I walked down the aisle, and she sat with me during the ceremony. She was pretty good during the ceremony. She played with her aunt's bracelet almost the entire time. She was less good during photos. For most of them, it was the bride and her bridesmaids, where Daddy held her, or the groom and his groomsmen, where I would hold her. But then there were some pictures where it was all of the bridal parties together, and Grandma had to hold her. So she was screaming during that, because she was still not allowing anyone but Mommy or Daddy to hold her. The reception went from a big party at a catering hall to a small party in the backyard of the parents of the groom. Nobody was wearing masks, and the music was very loud, so we ended up spending most of our night in the back where the tent was, because it was a little quieter back there. She started to get cranky and fussy and tired, but couldn't sleep due to the noise, so we ended up having to leave before they even brought the cake out. The next day we went to go see some friends for an outdoor-only visit. My one friend hadn't seen the baby since February when she came, and the other had never met her. I hadn't seen her since the November before when her baby was born. We let the older children roam the backyard while the younger children played on a blanket. It wasn't a particularly long visit, but it was still very nice to see people because it was the first time we were really seeing friends. We went home again at the end of October for a small Halloween party. We have a friend who normally has a very large Halloween party, but obviously this year it was a very small one instead. It was us, them, 2 other small families, and 1 other person. It was a very small party. We went trick-or-treating, then went back to their house for pizza. It wasn't anything fancy, and it was her first Halloween, so we wanted to do something. We decided not to go home for Thanksgiving. Baby girl couldn't eat the food, and my husband doesn't really eat Thanksgiving dinner anyway. And it's not like we could have a big family get-together. I thought I was okay with it, but I really was sad. Just another first of baby girls that didn't go according to plan. Just another holiday ruined by people's stupidity and ignorance. December came, and with it the decision that I was not going back to work for the rest of the school year. I had to contact the daycare again and tell them that I wasn't going back to work, and we didn't have a start date for her, since things were still so up in the air. We were told that they will hold a spot for her as long as they can, but they can't guarantee that there's going to be a spot available when we decide that we're ready to come back. And that no, they would not be refunding our first month's tuition, which, by the way, was quite a substantial amount of money and kind of ridiculous that they won't refund it since she's never been there and there's been a global pandemic, but okay. Early in December, something happened that we still can't quite explain. Our child, for no apparent reason, suddenly decided to fight bedtime and wake up multiple times through the night. She has been putting herself to sleep since she was 3 months old, and sleeping through the night since she was 5 months old. We thought maybe she was scared of something because of how she was screaming and shaking and clutching at us. Then we thought maybe she's teething. We tried everything we could think of. I changed the brightness of her light. I changed the color of her light. I turned the light off. I changed the volume of her white noise. I changed the sound of her noise. I turned the noise off. We changed the routine to make it more soothing and sleep-inducing. We gave her Tylenol a few nights thinking maybe she was in pain. We tried taking her into our bed a few nights. Then it spread to nap time, too. You'd put her down and she would pop right back up screaming. One night we tried the cry it out method. She screamed for 20 minutes straight until she had no voice. And we decided that was not going to work. We thought maybe she's too hot, so we dressed her down. Then we thought maybe she's too cold, so we bundled her right back up. We thought maybe she's hungry, so we increased the amount of food that she's been eating, especially at dinner time. Then we thought maybe she's thirsty, so we made sure she was drinking plenty of water. Then we thought maybe she's wet and uncomfortable, so we started changing her in the middle of the night. It was like having a newborn again. Time went by and we started giving up on bedtime, which I know is awful, but I was just so tired of fighting with her at bedtime. So now we get ready for bed and she sits on the couch with us until she falls asleep. And then Daddy brings her upstairs and, fingers crossed, most nights she's okay. Sometimes she does wake up 2, 3, even 4 times a night, but usually she's pretty okay. We did all of our Christmas shopping this year online, as we had done so for all of our other shopping for this entire year. We made the choice to visit our friends and family the weekend before Christmas. We saw the same group of people that we saw for the Halloween party. We exchanged gifts with my parents and younger siblings, and my husband's parents, sister, grandma, and uncle. We did not see my husband's brother, but we did send gifts. We have not seen my older sister and her son and husband either. Their gifts are still in our closet. We came back home and had Christmas on Christmas here, just the 3 of us. And New Year's was nothing special, but we didn't think it would be, since she wouldn't have been up that late anyway. She turned 1 in early January, and I really wanted to have a big party with all of our family and friends there. I began planning this party months ago on Pinterest, hoping that it would be okay to have it now. I found decorations that I wanted and cakes that were adorable and a cute little outfit for her to wear. I wanted to do a cake smash photo shoot, even if it was just me with my iPhone. But as time creeped ever so closer to the date, I knew it wouldn't be possible. Instead, we had both sets of our parents come, and we ordered pizza and got a nice cake from a bakery. And that was it. I got her a nice outfit from Etsy, but it wasn't really anything special. It wasn't anything fancy. I am still grieving the loss of what her first year should have been. At the time of filming this, she is almost 13 months old, and she has never seen the inside of a Target, or the mall, or the grocery store. She has never been on a playground, to the library, to the pool in our complex, or to the beach. She has never been on a carousel or seen a parade. She did not get to sit on Santa's lap or take a picture with the Easter Bunny. She has never been to a restaurant or a sandbox. We still have friends and family who have never met her. She has never spent a night without us, which also means we have never had a night off. We were supposed to leave her with my in-laws in April when we went to a wedding, which obviously did not happen. And then again, we were going to leave her in October with my parents for my sister-in-law's wedding. I didn't get to go to my sister-in-law's bachelorette party. The longest I've ever been away from my daughter was 4 hours for the bridal shower. I never got to introduce her to my coworkers before coming back to work like I'd wanted. I never got to do any of the things that I had hoped and dreamed of doing. My daughter is so incredibly perfect, but this has also been a very challenging time for all of us. I know I am not the only person who is experiencing these feelings and emotions, and I am grateful that she was born even just those 2 months prior to all of this, so that we did have the chance to see some people, because I know so many people did not have the luxury of having people come give them help, or to be unable to have their spouses or support partners at their sonograms, or worry that they're not going to be able to have anyone in the labor and delivery room with them. But even knowing that does not really make me feel better. It doesn't change how I feel. It doesn't rewrite time to allow me to do the things that we missed out on. And the way things have been going so far in 2021, I don't know that this year is going to be any different. I don't know if she's going to be able to do any of those things this year either. I can only hope and pray that people do the right thing, that things will get better, that people will wear their masks and stop having big parties and socially distance themselves and get vaccinated, and that this vaccine works and doesn't have these huge long-term side effects, so that I can take my child to the store or to the beach or Sesame Place or just a friend's house and not worry about getting sick or having to wear a mask or staying away from each other. I want to be able to give my family and friends hugs without fear. I want to be able to go back to work. I want to be able to smile at people again. I hope that if you're a new parent or were a new parent around the same time as we were, that you know that you're not alone. I hope that my story has helped you see that what you're feeling is totally normal and natural to feel. If you're still watching at the end of what I assume is a very long video, thank you so much. Please join me in the next video for something not quite so deep and depressing. Bye!